Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a topic suggested by one of you, actually, based on the source, Tantra at Tahoe Ultimate Ejaculation Mastery.
Right. And many listeners have probably heard things about premature ejaculation, maybe wondered about solutions.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission, you could say, for this deep dive is to pull out the key ideas and the practical stuff from this book. Sort of a shortcut to understanding its core message for, enhancing sexual experience.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how the book starts off. It says right away that coming quickly is common and curable.
That's huge.
Yeah. And crucially, there's nothing wrong with you if it's something you're dealing with. It frames it not as fixing a problem, but more like opening up possibilities.
Exactly. It's not just about lasting longer, is it? The book seems to aim higher.
Definitely. The goal presented is becoming a master at choice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, enjoying more pleasure for longer, but also exploring different kinds of orgasms.
Different act.
Including ones that don't actually involve ejaculation. It's presented as a much richer way to experience sex.
Okay. So let's unpack that. The book calls Tantra a spiritual science of sacred sex. What does that actually mean in practice, especially for ejaculation mastery?
Well, the core idea seems to be about energy, your body's energy. The book explains Tantra as a way to really get a handle on your own physical sensations. That nervous excitement, the arousal building up.
You mean like the warmth, the tingles, that kind of thing?
Exactly that. It's not abstract, it's physical. The book talks about orgasmic energy, that intense feeling right before you climax.
Right.
And Tantra, according to this source, helps you become way more aware of that energy, amplify it, and then, this is the key part, circulate it through your whole body.
So it doesn't just stay concentrated down there.
Precisely. Instead of just trying to hold back the inevitable release, you're actively moving that feeling, that energy around.
And the book suggests this has benefits beyond just lasting longer.
Oh yeah. It talks about potential for multiple orgasms, maybe more like many women experience. Quicker recovery time for erections, sustained energy levels afterwards, not feeling drained, and also deeper intimacy, a stronger emotional and mental connection. So you see, it connects redirecting that physical peak to these broader effects, suggesting it impacts your whole energy system.
Wow. That really is a different way of thinking about it. And there's a framework for this, the ramper thing.
Yep, RAMPER. It's the book's acronym for the core principles: relax, awareness, measure, pace, energy circulation, and ride the wave. That's sort of the foundation for all the techniques.
Okay, let's get into the practical side. Solo prep and mastery. Why start there? Why practice alone?
The book really stresses this. It argues you need to get super familiar with your own body, your own arousal patterns first, in private, without, the dynamic of having a partner there.
Makes sense. Build that self-awareness.
Exactly. Build that foundation of control and knowing your signals.
So what are the main things to focus on in solo practice, according to the book?
A few key areas. It mentions desensitizing,
Mm-hmm.
though it seems a bit skeptical about long-term fixes there, but acknowledges things like pre-masturbation or condoms short-term.
Okay.
But more focus is put on relaxation,
Mhm.
simple things like breathing, even where you put your tongue to avoid jaw tension.
Tongue placement. Really?
Yeah, apparently tension can build up easily.
Yeah.
Then there's opening senses, trying to feel pleasure all over, not just fixating on the genitals, engaging more erogenous zones.
Shifting the focus.
Right. And measured self-pleasuring, like being really mindful of your arousal level as you go.
Yeah.
And then the big one, the PC pump. Exercises for the pubococcygeus muscle.
Ah, yes, the PC muscle. The stop your P muscle.
That's the one. And the book detailed a whole bunch of exercises for it, these PC pumps.
Like what?
Okay, so there's the PC flex, just a squeeze and release, maybe timed with your heartbeat. Then the PC clench, holding the squeeze while you inhale. Rosetta contractions, focusing around the anus, kind of expanding the contraction outward. And Devamani elevations. This one sounds kind of wild. It's about learning to consciously lift and lower your testicles.
Oh, consciously move your testicles. I don't think many people realize that's even possible. How does that link to control?
The book suggests it helps build really fine control over the whole pelvic floor muscle group. It's all interconnected down there, apparently.
Fascinating. What else is on that PC pump list?
Let's see. PC flutters, rapid light contractions. PC clamps, really strong, sustained holds. The perineum press, putting pressure on that spot between the genitals and anus. The prostate point.
Right.
Then there's the PC squeeze, a firm tightening. The root lock, which sounds more intense, involving the whole pelvic floor, often with breath holding. Vajra squeeze, applying pressure to different parts of the penis itself. and the Devamani pull, gently pulling downwards on the testicles or scrotum.
Quite a regimen. Sounds like a real workout for that area.
It kind of is. The idea is to tone those muscles, get conscious control over that ejaculatory reflex, and the book even hints it might massage the prostate, which it could have health benefits too.
So it's about learning to manage those contractions.
And expand the sensations, yeah. Learning to regulate everything happening down there.
The book also talks about peaking and interrupting ejaculation as solo skills. How do you work on that?
Peaking is basically bringing yourself right to the edge, that point where you feel you're about to go over, and then stopping simulation, pulling back.
Okay, threshold training.
Exactly. And interrupting ejaculation is using those PC muscle techniques, the squeezes, the presses you've practiced, to actually stop the release if you get too close. Learning to intervene consciously.
And what about sexual breathing? That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, the book describes sexual breathing as a technique to kind of like wash your body with that built-up orgasmic energy, but without the release.
Oh.
It involves really deep, mindful breathing, often visualizing that energy moving up from your genitals and circulating through your whole body. It's meant to help extend that high pleasure state.
Which relates to plateauing, right? Staying in that intense zone.
Exactly. Plateauing is about maintaining that high level of arousal for, well, as long as you want, without tipping over the edge.
And how do you manage that solo?
The book suggests using a mix of things. That sexual breathing, making sounds like moaning, apparently that helps move energy, doing those PC pumps, and just making tiny adjustments to how you're touching yourself.
So actively managing the intensity.
Yeah, learning to ride that wave, keep it high, but controlled, instead of just letting it crash.
Okay, shifting gears now to bringing a partner into the picture. Partner prep and lovemaking. What's important here, according to the source?
Communication comes up huge here. Being really open, making sure you and your partner are kind of aligned on expectations.
Makes total sense.
The book talks about setting partnering guidelines and actively focusing on turning each other on, consciously, mutually, really understanding desires and boundaries. You can't just guess, right?
No, definitely not. So what specific techniques does it suggest for partnered sex?
They mentioned stop-start techniques, calling it VIY, that's Vajra and Yoni.
Vajra and Yoni.
Okay. Yeah, basically noticing your arousal level during intercourse and communicating to pause before hitting that point of no return.
So pausing the movement.
Right. Or using subtle adjustments. Things like changing the angle slightly, the rhythm, the depth, the pressure.
Yeah.
Small shifts to manage arousal while staying connected.
Requires a lot of awareness then,
Yeah.
and communication in the moment.
Totally. That's key. It also talks about breath peaking together, combining the stroking or movement with deep visualized breathing, maybe doing PC pumps simultaneously, circulating energy as a couple.
Wow, coordinating breath and energy.
Yeah. And it does include a section on smart sex, important reminders about safe practices, talking openly about STDs and protection, practical stuff.
Good, essential. Does it get into positions? Are some better than others for this kind of control?
It does. It explores different positions and notes that, yeah, some are generally more stimulating, some less so. It gives examples like woman on top, side to side, man on top, rear entry.
Standard stuff, but maybe viewed differently.
Right, viewed through the lens of managing arousal. It even mentions specific names like 99 and Yab Yum. The takeaway is really to experiment and find what allows both pleasure and control for the specific couple.
And what's this Taoist 9-in-1 technique?
Yeah, that's described as a specific thrusting pattern from traditional Taoist practices, like 9 shallow thrusts followed by 1 deep thrust, repeated.
A specific rhythm.
Exactly. The book suggests different ratios, even as a structured way to help manage the pace and intensity, prolonging things while still aiming for partner pleasure.
It sounds like communication is just woven through everything in the partnered section.
Absolutely. Constant feedback, checking in, adjusting together. And the book even elevates the idea of intercourse, calling it the art of fucking, but reframing it as SEX, subtle energy exchange.
Subtle energy exchange, aiming for something deeper than just the physical act.
Yeah, a potential spiritual connection, a merger of energies is how it's presented.
Which leads us nicely into the bigger picture stuff, the Tantra Vision and Practice chapter. How does the book frame Tantra overall?
It describes Tantra not as a rigid religion, but more like a personal cult of ecstasy, a joyful path.
Ecstasy.
Yeah, emphasizing mystical experience through joy. Key ideas are things like being life-affirming or anti-ascetic, finding the divine in the human experience not by denying it,
Okay.
And honoring Shiva and Shakti, seeing those masculine and feminine energies within everyone, regardless of gender. So it's about living fully, raising consciousness, being present, heightening your senses.
And it suggests we're naturally blissful, but society messes it up.
Kind of. The book suggests our essential nature is love and bliss, but social conditioning creates these like unnatural inhibitions or blocks.
So Tantra is about getting back to that natural state.
In a way, Tantra says yes to life is a big theme, accepting everything non-judgmentally, and viewing the body as sacred, a temple, not something shameful.
Pleasure first is mentioned too. That sounds potentially controversial.
It is a central idea, but framed as pleasure is a discipline, meaning it's something you consciously cultivate and refine, not just hedonism. It's mindful pleasure.
And how does sex fit into this whole tantric worldview?
It sees sex as an art and a science, a powerful path to delight in our bodies, to welcome pleasure. But crucially, it's tied to mastering that energy, chi, prana, ki, whatever you call it.
And the chakras.
Yes, it connects that energy flow to the 7 chakras, the body's main energy centers. Sacred sex, in this context, is about integrating sexuality and spirituality, connecting sex, heart, and spirit.
So not just physical.
Not at all. It even talks about sex as meditation, quieting the mind, fully surrendering to the present moment experience.
Sounds very holistic.
It really is. And the book stresses it's a path of practice. It requires doing the exercises, the rituals, not just reading about it.
And this idea of moving energy upwards.
Right. The transformative potential of consciously moving that orgasmic energy from the lower chakras up towards the higher ones. Heart, throat, third eye, crown.
Leading to implosive orgasms.
That's the term used. Describes intense internal experiences, whole body bliss, potentially without external ejaculation. So tantric lovemaking itself is painted as slow, conscious, communicative, focused on building and sustaining pleasure, not just a race to the finish line.
Okay, so bringing it all together, the book wraps up with final thoughts and further exploration. What are the key bits there?
Well, it reinforces that vision of a really fulfilling tantric experience. It also mentions practical resources like hands-on coaching offered by Tantra at Tahoe or recommended tantric goddesses, presumably practitioners or coaches.
Right, for people who want guided practice.
Exactly. And it includes those smart sex guidelines again, emphasizing safety and communication, even preventing a color-coded risk spectrum for HIV transmission based on different acts. Very practical.
Good to have that grounded element. What about further learning? Books? Music?
Yep, there's a bibliography with recommended reading, books on general Tantra, specific techniques for extended orgasm, Taoist secrets, stuff like that, and music suggestions too.
Music.
Yeah, categorized into things like tantric practice music, relaxing meditative music, and sensual lovemaking music. So, creating the whole atmosphere.
A multisensory approach then, and a glossary for the terms.
Definitely needed. It defines key terms you hear throughout Vajra, Yoni, Devamani, Shivalingam, Shakti, Chakra, implosive orgasm. Helps make sense of the specific language.
So if we were to boil down our deep dive into Tantra at Tahoe Ultimate Ejaculation Mastery, what's the core takeaway for listeners?
I'd say it offers a really thorough approach, not just to controlling ejaculation, but really expanding your whole concept of sexual pleasure and connection. It blends physical techniques, mindfulness, and this tantric philosophy.
That emphasizes a more conscious, maybe more profound sexual experience.
Exactly. And it's clear that it's a path involving both that inward journey of solo practice and the outward journey of open communication with partners.
Understanding yourself and sharing that understanding.
That seems to be the heart of it.
So a final thought for everyone listening. Now that you've had this glimpse into potentially deeper, longer, more conscious sexual experiences, how might this shift your own approach to intimacy and pleasure? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
We'd love to hear your reflections or any follow-up questions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.